Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of American Civil War with your hosts, Bang and Dang. Back at you with another 4 battles today. Coming in and starting off the month of October. 3 directly related battles. Back to back to back to back. Nothing doing here. This is probably going to be maybe a 20-25 minute episode. Like we had a lot of those lately.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
We got the Battle of Blue Springs, 1st Auburn, Bristoe Station, and 2nd Auburn. Actually, I think it's going to be 1st Auburn, 2nd Auburn, and then Bristoe Station. To end it, October 10th, we start out with the Battle of Blue Springs in Greene County, Tennessee. We got Ambrose Burnside and his Army of the Ohio going up against John Williams and his 1st Tennessee Volunteer Cavalry, plus the 4th Kentucky Cavalry. Major General Ambrose E. Burnside, commander of the Department of Ohio, undertook an expedition into East Tennessee to clear the roads and passes to Virginia and, if possible, secure the salt works beyond Abingdon. Abingdon? Wasn't one of the battles last episode Burnside doing something?
Yep.
Yeah. In October, Confederate Brigadier General John S. Williams with his cavalry force set out to disrupt Union communications and logistics at the same time.
Oh, look at that shit. That's fantastic. He wished to take Bull's Gap on East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad, October 3rd, 1863. While advancing on Bull's Gap, he fought with Brigadier General Samuel Carter's Union Cavalry Division, which was the 23rd Corps at Blue Springs, about 9 miles from Bull's Gap, on the railroad. Carter, not knowing how many of the enemy he faced, withdrew. Carter and Williams skirmished the next few days. 10th of October, 1863, Carter approached Blue Springs in force. Williams, on the Reb side, had received some reinforcements himself. The battle began at 10 a.m., with the Union cavalry engaging the Confederates till well after noon, while another mounted force attempted to place itself in a position to cut off a Confederate retreat.
All right, Captain Orlando M. Poe, the chief engineer, performed a reconnaissance to identify the best location for making an infantry attack. 3:30 p.m., Brigadier General Edward Ferrero's 1st Division, the 9th Corps, moved up to attack, which they did at 5 p.m. Ferrero's men broke into the Confederate line, causing heavy casualties, and advanced almost to the enemy's rear before being checked. They said, check yourself. After dark, the Confederates withdrew, and the Federals took up the pursuit in the morning. Within days, Williams and his men had retired to Virginia. Burnside had launched the East Tennessee campaign to reduce or extinguish Confederate influence in the area. Blue Springs helped fulfill that mission.
Oh, ain't that nice?
Good for that.
Good for Tennessee. Moving on, the 1st Battle of Auburn, fought on the 13th October, 1863, between Union infantry and Confederate cavalry at the start of the Bristoe campaign. Following the conclusion of the Gettysburg campaign, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia and the Union Army of Potomac regrouped on their previous positions astride opposite banks of the Rapidan River. For the duration of the summer, both armies remained inactive, reorganizing and resupplying after the devastation wrought at Gettysburg and Vicksburg and all that whole area over there just got hammered on.
Yeah, we're not ready to do anything.
Right. In early September 1863, Lieutenant General James Longstreet from the Confederates was dispatched with 2 divisions to aid the Confederate war effort in the West. He's like, Longstreet, go west,
Which
bud.
we saw him at Chickamauga. And after the defeat of the Union at Chickamauga, which Longstreet helped secure, Major General George Meade was forced to send the 11th and 12th Corps to help secure Middle Tennessee. When General Lee learned of the reassignment of the 2 Union Corps, he decided to go on the offensive and force the Army of the Potomac to give battle on ground of his choosing. Lee's plan was much the same as that of the Northern Virginia campaign the year prior. He wanted to turn their Union right flank by threatening Washington, D.C., using a forced march to the west around the Union line.
Dude, they could have got to D.C. if they wanted to.
Well, I don't know.
To that end, Lieutenant General Richard Ewell's and Lieutenant General A.P. Hill's corps were ordered to sweep around the Union right flank. Major General Fitzhugh Lee, with 3 brigades of cavalry and infantry each, was to scare the Rapidan and prevent a Union advance into central Virginia. Major General Jeb Stuart, we haven't heard him in a while, was to lead his cavalry in advance of the infantry. The Confederate advance began on the 8th of October, 1863, and was almost immediately detected by Union spies in the signaling station atop Cedar Mountain. Cool. Unsure of whether
they have little mirrors or something.
right, unsure of whether Lee was attempting to turn his right flank or make a retrograde movement toward Richmond, Meade ordered dispositions for counter either threat. He was going for your right, bud.
All right. The offense began October 10th when Stuart led a diversionary attack on Brigadier General George A. Custer's division holding the Robinson River west of Culpeper Courthouse. This movement convinced Meade that Lee did not intend to fall back toward Richmond, and Meade moved back on the Rappahannock Station to counter Lee's movement.
Right.
October 12th, Confederate infantry were spotted at Amisville, convincing Meade that Lee planned to send his army through the Thoroughfare Gap as he had in 1862.
Ooh.
Lee he was like, let's try the same thing.
Right. Accordingly, Meade retreated toward Centreville along the Orange and Alexandria Railroad to defend Washington from such a movement. Lee, however, intended to converge on Warrenton and stay to the south of the Bull Run Mountains. October 13th, Jeb Stuart was dispatched to reconnoiter the position of the Union left flank as it withdrew towards Centreville. It's a nice little area there. That's a lot of riding, man.
Yep. 10 a.m., October 13th, Stuart sent Brigadier General Lunsford L. Lomax's brigade east from Warrenton. Stuart followed an hour later with two of his brigades. Lomax stopped at Auburn to wait for Stuart and dispatched scouts further east, who soon discovered Brigadier General John Buford's cavalry at Warrenton Junction, guarding the Federal wagon train advancing east by the O&A Railroad. Two scouts were dispatched to the south, however, in the presence of the Union 2nd and 3rd Corps, which had become separated from the main body of the Army due to confusion during the frequent repositioning of the past few days, marching north towards Auburn. Always some sort of confusion between these armies.
I just don't get it. Stuart arrived at Auburn around 1 p.m. He rode east to Catlett Station to reconnoiter the Union wagon train, leaving Lomax to hold Auburn and dispatching his aide. Captain William Blackford, he wanted him to scout to the south of Auburn. Blackbird got lost, failed to discover their approaching Federal column.
Oh, no.
Stuart, meanwhile, impressed by the size of the wagon trail, sent a dispatch to Fitzhugh Lee at Warrenton, ordering him to aid in the attack. Well, Lee left Warrenton at about 4 p.m. and followed Stuart's path through Auburn.
The Union column, led by Major General William H. French's 3rd Corps, followed by Brigadier General Gouverneur K. Warren's 2nd Corps, approached Auburn about 4:15 p.m. French had dispatched his cavalry under Brigadier General H. Judson Kilpatrick to the north to guard his left flank from the Confederate cavalry at Warrenton, leaving the column without his cavalry at its head, thus allowing it to stumble into the Confederates at Auburn.
Oh, man.
French and his staff at the head of the column fired their revolvers at the Confederates as the infantry and artillery were brought up. Lomax attempted to charge the Federal line, but a volley of canister shot drove back the assault.
I'm sure it did.
By 4:45, the fighting died down. Just as Lee arrived from Warrenton. Seeing they were facing two infantry corps, Lee and Lomax withdrew back to Warrenton.
All that way just to turn around.
Yep.
The short fight resulted in only about 50 casualties, but had deep repercussions for Stuart and the developing campaign. Blackford, finally alerted to the presence of the Federals, notified Stuart of the situation.
Stuart's like a little too late.
All right. Seeing that he was trapped between the 2nd and 3rd Corps to his northwest and the wagon train on the southeast, Jeb Stuart led his command, some 30,000 men and horses, 5 ordnance wagons, and 7 artillery pieces into a wooded ravine east of Auburn, only 300 yards from Warren's camp. Oh, no shit. After dark, Jeb Stuart sent 6 scouts dressed in Federal uniforms through the Union lines to get word to Robert E. Lee.
Brave little fuckers, huh?
Lee accordingly dispatched Ewell to Auburn at dawn to rescue Stuart and his cavalry, setting up the Second Battle of Auburn the very day
following.
Right.
Which we'll go right into the Second Battle of Auburn, which is October 14th in Fauquier County, Virginia. 3 a.m., October 14th, Warren's 2nd Corps broke camp at 3 Mile Station for Catlett Station. At the crossing of Cedar Run, just south of Auburn, the ground was muddied by the passing of the Federal 3rd Corps during the night. Wagon trains had difficulty in the mud on the slopes of the creek, and accordingly, Warren ordered Brigadier General John C. Caldwell's brigade to secure the high ground north of the creek and guard the rear of the column and the wagon train as it marched to Catlett Station. On the hill, Caldwell's men set up camp and began to make breakfast, and the hill was soon dubbed Coffee Hill. Caldwell formed a skirmish line facing northwest towards Warrenton with the 10th New York in advance as vedettes. That's a picket. All these times we've been doing this, you guys have never used the word vedettes.
Right.
Idiots.
6:15 a.m., the advance of Ewell's Corps under Major General Robert Rhodes' division approached the 10th New York, and skirmishing broke out. The sound of gunfire carried the ravine where Stuart was holed up, and he dispatched scouts to reconnoiter the situation. Quit saying reconnoiter. Just say, go check it out, guys. Upon discovering the Federals on Coffee Hill, Stuart ordered Major Robert Beckham's horse artillery on a hill to the east of Coffee Hill. The Confederates opened a barrage
called Horse Hill.
Right. The Confederates opened a barrage on the old Federales, catching them by surprise. Oh. Caldwell turned his batteries on Coffee Hill to face Beckham's, moved his line to the western slope of the hill, protecting them against artillery fire, and then dispatched Brigadier General Alexander Hayes' division against Beckham. Said, go get him, boys.
Get him. To protect Beckham as he limbered his guns to withdraw, Stuart sent Brigadier General James Gordon to charge the Federal advance being led by the 125th New York. Charge temporarily stopped the advance, and general skirmishing between the sides ensued. Stuart ordered Gordon to charge again to provide cover for his cavalry to escape to the southeast. Gordon fell wounded in the charge, but Stuart made his escape and looped around the Federal position, joining with Major General Jubal Early and Fitzhugh Lee, posted to the southwest of Auburn.
Wow.
He said, I'm getting out of here, boys.
All right.
Just leaves his men.
All right, with Stuart's command gone, the battle intensified along Ewell's front. Rhodes advanced on Coffee Hill, and Caldwell repositioned his artillery back to the west to check the Confederate advance. Rhodes pressed the attack from 8 to 9 a.m. with General Early and General Fitzhugh Lee's divisions joining the fray from the southwest. By 10 a.m., the fight had stalled. An hour-long artillery duel ensued until the Federal column had passed safely the Catlet Station. Caldwell, he withdrew to the east, and he pressed for a short time by Rhodes. He was pressed. By 1 p.m., all fighting had ceased, and Ewell had withdrew. So everybody's withdrawing. So who won that battle?
Nobody. The morning-long fight resulted in just over 100 total casualties. Strategically, the results was a draw. The Confederates were still able to save Stuart's command from the near certain capture, while the Federals were able to protect their vulnerable wagon trains. Determined to press the rear of the Union retrograde, Robert E. Lee ordered Lieutenant General A.P. Hill to pursue the Federals east along the railroad, resulting in the Battle of Bristoe Station later that afternoon.
Who would imagine if Jeb Stuart would have got captured?
Yeah.
Wow. Moving on. Battle of Bristoe Station.
He would have, Lee's probably finally get rid of this guy.
Right.
All he does is wander around the country looking for me.
Right. The Battle of Bristoe Station was fought later that day, the same day as the second battle of whatever battle we just did.
Auburn.
This was at Bristoe Station, Virginia, between Union forces and Under Major General Gouverneur Warren and Confederate forces under Lieutenant General A.P. Hill.
I'm the superior Hill.
Right. This was during the Bristoe campaign. The Union Army was led by Major General George Meade. The Confederates, Robert E. Lee. General Lee, he marched his men throughout the night so no one would know. Passing around Cedar Mountain, this was the site of a battle back in 1862.
It was. I believe it was Cedar Mountain.
Yeah, we did it. This forced Meade to retreat towards Centreville. By withdrawing, Meade prevented Lee from falling on an exposed flank of the Army of Potomac. Oh, it would have got him. That's what he wanted to. Major General Gouverneur Warren, commanding the 2nd Corps, and Major General Winfield Hancock's absence, was following the 5th Corps on this retreat. Okay.
All right. Lieutenant General A.P. Hill, leading the Confederate 3rd Corps, was advancing on Ewell's left. He reached Bristoe Station on October 14th.
All right.
The town is variously called Bristoe, and Bristoe. Cool. One with an O-E and an O-W and just an O. And contemporary newspapers. We all know people that writing back then were idiots.
Right.
Hill tried to harass the rear guard of the 5th Corps just across from Broad Run, but he missed the presence of the 2nd Corps just coming up from Auburn.
Uh-oh.
Seeing Hess advance, Warren rapidly deployed his forces behind an embankment of the Orange and Alexandria Railroad near Bristoe Station. The result was a powerful ambush as Hill's corps moved to the attack. They moved to attack the Union rearguard across Broad Run.
Uh-oh. Major General Henry Heth's division moved to attack the 5th Corps from the Union. It was redirected to attack the 2nd Corps. Huh? He said that 5th, get the 2nd.
Right.
Union artillery, including the battery of Captain Bruce Ricketts. He opened fire on the old ribs, and infantry fire soon was added. Good. Despite this, old Heth's men briefly secured a foothold in the lines of Colonel James Mullins in the 2nd Division under Brigadier General Alexander Webb of the Union. The Confederates were driven back. 5 guns of Confederate battery were captured in Federal counterattack.
Nice.
Colonel Mallon was murdered in the fighting, though.
Nice.
The Confederate Division Major General Richard Anderson attacked the lines of Brigadier General Alexander Hayes' division and was repelled. Brigadier General Carnett Posey was mortally wounded in this very attack from the Reb side. 2 of Heth's brigade commanders, William Wedby Kirkland and John Rogers Cook, badly wounded.
Union casualties are 540. Confederates had about 1,380.
Dang.
Warren, seeing Lieutenant Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps coming up on his left, eventually had to withdraw. Lee is said to have cut off Hill's excuses for this defeat by saying, well, General, bury these poor men and let us say no more about it.
Right. Ooh.
He said, I'm disgusted with you. Where's the other Hill?
Right.
The Union forces won the battle, but they had to retreat to Centerville, Virginia before standing their ground. When they pulled back starting October 18th, the Confederates destroyed much of the Orange and Alexandria Railroad. Meade had to rebuild the railroad when he reoccupied the area around Bristoe Station. Warren won such reputation as a Corps commander that he was given the 5th Corps as a regular assignment after Hancock returned to the Army of the Potomac in 1864.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. Well, the American Battlefield Trust and its partners have acquired and preserved more than 308 acres of the old battlefield, and this is through this year. However, the Prince William County Board of Supervisors approved the development of the remaining 1,500 acres on which the Battle of Bristoe Station occurred.
Oh, well, they approved development? You guys are idiots.
Right. Contacts Holmes allowed the Civil War Trust 90 days to find and exhume all of the remains that they could find before they converted the battlefield into a residential housing development. Dang, dude. Look at it.
What a bunch of pieces of shit,
I wonder how many bodies you think there's got to...
90 days.
I wonder how many bodies they found.
I guess this county's in kind of a little bit of a shit show. They have like 50 battles in their county, dude. They can't...
Right.
If they want to grow, they're going to have to give up some of it, I guess.
Oh, man. And plus, it's a Democrat.
You got Cockpick Point there. You got some of Manassas battlefield. You got this battlefield. I mean, holy shit. Screw it. We're going to have to do another battle to end this one because we got to at least get it over 20 minutes. Or maybe not because it's like 2 paragraphs on this one, too. We're going to go move on to the Battle of Fort Brooke, which is in
Florida,
in and around Tampa.
Look at that.
October 16th to the 18th.
Fighting some Seminoles?
Yeah, no. It's John Westcott and A.A. Semis on the United States side. Never heard of either of those guys yet. An important facet of the Union's long-term strategy during the war was the Anaconda Plan, which established a blockade along much of the coast of the Confederate States. Though only a small town at the time, Tampa had been an important port for exporting cattle and crops from ranches and farms in the interior of Central Florida before the war.
Right.
By 1862, most local shipping had been stymied by Union Navy ships patrolling near the mouth of the Tampa Bay.
Oh.
However, several fast blockade runners used in Tampa had consistently slipped out to deliver cattle and cotton to Spanish Cuba in exchange for needed goods and gold.
The Battle of Tampa took place in 1862, in the month of June. After the Union gunboat USS Sagamore, it steamed into the Tampa Bay and demanded the surrender of a small Confederate garrison at Fort Brooke. He's like, put your hands up.
I remember this.
When the demand was rebuffed, the gunboat fired several volleys at the town, which were answered with return fire from the fort. Neither side suffered damage or casualties, and the Sagamore returned to its station.
They're like, pew, 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 pew.
Blockading the mouth of the Tampa Bay after about 24 hours. While the brief exchange had no effect on the fort, the town, or the blockade runners based there, it did have an effect of allowing Union forces to determine the maximum range of the Confederate artillery in the area. They're like,
ooh, playing it again. There you go.
I think we can shoot a little farther than they can, guys.
All right. Autumn 1862, Captain A.A. Semis, the commander of the Union Naval Forces off Florida's west coast, decided to mount an operation to end the blockade run-in that had continued from Tampa. 2 Union gunships, the USS Tahoma and the USS Adela, sailed into Tampa Bay on October 16th, 1863, and began a slow bombardment of Fort Brooke while staying just out of range of the guns.
All right.
2 days later, October 18th, a Union raiding party under acting master T.R. Harris secretly disembarked at Ballast Point, landing near the current intersection of Bayshore Boulevard and Gandy Boulevard. Oh, cool. While the Union gunships continued a diversionary bombardment of the fort, about 100 Union troops marched 14 miles north through a heavily wooded area that was later developed into the neighborhoods of Palmasaya, West Tampa, and Seminole Heights. Their target was a Jean Street shipyard on the Hillsborough River near today's Sly Avenue. And upon reaching their destination, they quickly seized and burned several ships moored at the dock, including 2 notorious blockade runners, the steamship Scottish Chief and the sloop Kate Dale.
Look at that shit. Yeah. Well, the ships and the shipyard were there. They were owned by a once and future mayor of Tampa, James McKay. Escaping capture by the attackers along with some crew members, McKay sped to the town and warned the Confederate forces at Fort Brooke about the raiding party and the fate of his ships. 2nd Florida Infantry Battalion, along with Ocklawaha Rangers, their cavalry unit, and a few citizens of the town, they quickly gave chase, caught up with the Union detachment near their landing point at Tampa Bay. A short but sharp engagement, known as the Battle of Ballast Point, ensued as the Union troops attempted to board their dinghies and near today's Ballast Point Park, and in return to waiting ships in the bay. Oh yeah, they're getting in their dinghies to go back to their ships in the bay. With the support of covering fire from the Tahoma and Adelia directed at Confederate forces on shore, the raiding party reached the ships, having suffered 16 casualties. Union forces sailed out of Tampa Bay soon thereafter.
Well, the blockade-running steamer Scottish Chief was heavily damaged but remained afloat after it burned. It was towed back downriver to near today's Blake High School, stripped of usable materials, and then destroyed. The steamer A.B. Noyes, which had also been damaged in the raid, was similarly broken down to preclude her capture. The Kate Dale sank near its mooring and remains at the bottom of the Hillsborough River near the current location of Zoo Tampa.
No shit. Still there, huh?
Cool. The raid met its objectives. Shipping out of Tampa came to a virtual halt for the duration of the war, damaging the Confederate war effort and crippling the local economy. When Union forces again landed in May of 1864, Fort Brooke was no longer garrisoned and the town had been virtually abandoned. Remaining cannon and supplies at the fort were destroyed, and after a short occupation, the Union said, let's get the hell out of here.
Right.
This place sucks.
Right.
This is in Tampa, huh? They abandoned the whole damn city of Tampa.
That was tiny.
That's crazy. Well, I think we made it to about 23 minutes here, maybe. Yeah. 5 battles. That's enough for this episode. That was the Battle of Blue Springs, 1st Auburn, 2nd Auburn, Bristoe Station, and Fort Brooke, if you want to call that. It was all D's, B's, and D's. Coming up next week, Buckland Mill.
Oh, wow.
Buckland Mills, 1 paragraph. Cherokee Station. Not very big. I don't know. Pine Bluff?
Gotta be something.
Nothing. What are we doing? The middle of the Mafia?
Right.
Battle of Brown's Ferry?
Gotta be something.
Nothing.
Oh.
And probably the Battle of Wahatchee.
Sure.
A decent little one, I guess. But we're gonna have another 5 battles. It's not a big battle that's gonna be worth anything until probably the Lookout Mountain in November. That's a decent one, but not even that big either.
Nope.
Maybe the Battle of Missionary Ridge.
Has to be. Nice.
But decent. That's it for 1863.
Ringgold Gap, pretty decent.
All right, yep. That'll do it for us. Another 5 battles down the drain for us.
And nothing really going on there except for Confederates not doing what Lee still not. His plans are just not working out. He's got these great ideas and nobody to actually do those ideas that he wants.
To Port Virginia.
Virginia.
Got ravaged during this war, dude.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Oh, shit. Especially the last couple months of the war. Crazy. Where it all ends at the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse.
And then the Battle of Fort Blakely's on the same day. 2 A battles on the same day. Damn.
And that'll do it for us in this week's Battles of the American Civil War. A reminder, go to our YouTube at Bang Dang Network. Give us a subscription where we have all 4 of our podcasts on there now. Plus our exclusive YouTube Dart League and clips, shorts, all that stuff going on over there at the Bang Dang Network on YouTube. And if you're just prefer to listen on the podcast, give us a review and comment, y'all.
Yeah, and if you guys like Attitude Era Wrestling, or Attitude Era Wrestling, go back and we got another show. I'm sure you've seen it on there. Got Monday Night Watch Along. Sit down and turn on a Raw or Nitro and turn off those terrible announcers and listen to us.
Those the terrible announcers. Turn off us.
Watch along with us and hear our reactions. And we score it.
We do. You can find that on the Bang Dang Network podcast channel.
Who won the war? The war on wrestling.
The war on wrestling. And with that, we'll be back next week for another 5 or 6 or maybe 8 battles. Who knows? Where the mother bitch get us with?
Bang Dang.